Sally, Nelly, and Kelly are hanging out at the beach. They play volleyball and have a lot of fun. But then their ball flies away into the bushes. Nelly leaves the playground to bring it back, and she never comes back. Kelly and Sally look everywhere, but Nelly is gone. They begin to panic and call the police. Detective Bold arrives quickly, finds 3 suspects, and questions them. Bill says, "I've been chilling here since morning, but I didn't notice anything." Kyle says, "I arrived here just now, so I have no idea what's going on." And Mike says, "I was diving in the sea and watching the corals." Can you figure out the kidnapper? It's Kyle. He's wearing the same cap as Nelly. It seems too small for his head. That's because Kyle kidnapped Nelly and stole her cap. Sally returns to the apartment building where she lives. Wow, there's a basket with a cute little kitten on her porch. Sally takes 2 pictures to send them to her friends. Can you spot 3 differences between them? Here they are. Sally wants to know who brought the kitten, so she interrogates her neighbors. Tom says,
"I've been playing video games since early morning. I didn't leave my place at all."
Tim says, "I've been working out and I haven't left my apartment yet." Tyler says, "I stayed home all day too. I was too busy playing basketball." Who's lying? Tyler. He's playing with a soccer ball, not a basketball. Moreover, it's pretty hard to play basketball alone inside the apartment. Sally goes to the supermarket to buy some milk for the kitten. Only these 3 packs of milk are left on the shelf. Can you help Sally choose the best option? The second milk expired 2 centuries ago, and the third milk carton is bloated, which means that it has already turned sour. Therefore, Sally should grab the first milk. Sally has been working as a cab driver for several years. One day, a police officer finds Sally unconscious in her car. Someone attacked her and stained the car with glue. The officer checks Sally's app account. Sally had quarrels with 3 clients recently, so he interrogates them. Rob says, "I took a cab to the university. When we arrived, Sally asked me to pay extra money for parking, and we had a brief quarrel, but I wouldn't put my future career at risk for a couple of dollars." Karen says, "Yesterday, I received an emergency call. My husband got to the hospital, so I needed to get there as soon as possible. But Sally was driving very slowly. That's why we had a quarrel." And Mrs. Green says, "I was returning home from the supermarket after grocery shopping. Sally asked for extra money for helping me with the bags. I didn't like it." After hearing their stories, the officer knows for sure who's guilty. What about you? Take a closer look at Sally's car. It's parked near the hospital, which means that Karen's trip was the last one before the attack. Therefore, she did it. Sally is feeling much better and she gets back to work. She needs to pick up her client at a restaurant. Her app offers 3 possible routes, but only one of them will actually bring her to the desired destination. Can you guess which one? Sally should choose the second route. Sally parks her car near the restaurant and faces the following scene. One of these ladies has a ghost mother. Can you guess who? The second lady is a ghost mother. Take a look at her mother's face. She's even younger than her daughter, which means that time has stopped for her a long time ago. Moreover, she leans over a candle without any fear of an open flame. Sally wants to visit her boyfriend Ken at his office, but the front door is locked. Can you help Sally figure out the 5-digit code? Let's take a closer look at these scratches. These are hints. All Sally needs to do is count the number of intersections. So the code is 23504. Finally, Sally gets inside Ken's lab. He shows her a spaceship from another galaxy. Ken found it and managed to repair everything except the dashboard. How should these wires be connected to make it work? Here, we see unfamiliar symbols from another galaxy. Our task is to determine which word each symbol corresponds to. These dots are put in the same places as the tails of some letters. This way, we can find a match for each word and connect the wires. Suddenly, Sally gets sick. She has a headache and a sore throat. Ken only has 4 pills that are identical to each other. They don't have any cover or instructions. So there's no way he can identify which pill serves that purpose. The only thing he knows is that 2 of these 4 pills will cure the throat and the remaining 2 will help with the headache. Sally should take 1 of each kind to heal. What should she do? The only solution available is to cut each pill in half, and then take 1/2 from each of the 4 pills. This way, she'll definitely have 1 pill of each kind. Ken offers Sally to live together. They begin to look for a new apartment and arrange 3 meetings with landlords. Each tells a story about their property. Mrs. Gray says,
I inherited this amazing apartment from my sister, but now I want to rent it for the long term because I'm moving to a farm with my husband.
Oliver says,
I've been living in this property for 5 years, and it's in perfect condition. But now, I'm moving abroad for work. So I'd like to find good tenants who will take care of it.
And Rose says, This apartment belongs to my mother-in-law. She lives in Europe and asked me to find new tenants. Only one of these landlords is trustworthy. Can you guess who? There's an advertisement near Mrs. Gray's apartment. This property is for sale. Therefore, she probably lied about the long-term lease. And now, let's take a closer look at Oliver's ceiling. It's leaking. Therefore, his apartment is not in perfect condition. Liar! Sally's kitten ran away. She's been looking for her pet all day long. Suddenly, Sally meets her neighbor holding her kitten. He says, I'll give your pet back only if you crack my riddle. I'm the last thing you take off when you go to bed. What am I? Ready to hear the correct answer? I'm your feet, and you take them off the floor. Sally brings her kitten to the vet for a checkup. There, she meets 2 doctors, but only one of them is a real vet doctor. Can you spot who exactly? Real doctors usually wear gloves at work, but the guy on the left doesn't wear any, although he's holding a dog. Sally wants to get a job in a magic shop. The owner gives her a test assignment to find a love potion on this shelf. Sally is very confused because the recipes are too complicated. Luckily, Sally's possible future coworker, Glenda, agrees to give Sally a hint. She provides her with a bunch of recipes, and now Sally needs to figure out the correct one by herself. She only knows that a love potion should contain these 5 ingredients. Can you help her find the right bottle? Only the third bottle has all the required ingredients, so Sally should grab it. Sally succeeds and gets the job. Now her task is to go to the storage and find a fake mirror. Can you help her? Only the second mirror shows the correct reflection, so the remaining two are fake. Sally and Glenda get hungry and order some food. Their meals are almost identical, but in fact, they have 3 differences. Can you spot them? Here they are.
The town's modern art museum has just been robbed. A priceless painting from top-notch artist Floyd B. has gone missing overnight. The museum's manager called Detective Pressfield to help. As soon as he arrived at the museum, he asked to see the security footage of the previous night. He identified 3 suspicious individuals staring at the painting for longer than usual. The first person, wearing a blue jacket, entered through the museum's front entrance. The security camera caught her staring at the painting from several angles, like she was measuring it. The second person, wearing a red hat, left the museum through the side exit, which is pretty suspicious. And the last person, who was wearing a black face mask, spent a long time looking at the museum's ceiling, trying to identify where the security cameras were located. Take a look at the footage. Can you guess who's the most likely thief? It's the last person. I mean, he was wearing a mask and spent hours trying to identify the security cameras. After that, there was no footage anymore. So that probably means he was successful at leaving the museum with the priceless painting. Samantha and Joanna were stuck at Blue Ridge's airport security line. A security guard found both of them suspicious and asked them to wait while he analyzed the X-ray footage. Take a look at both women. Who do you think is really hiding something? Well, Samantha has a suspicious face, but she probably just wants to go to the bathroom or something. Now, Joanna is definitely hiding something under her skirt. If she had really been pregnant, she would have used the preferential line. And look how much she's sweating. She's probably nervous she'll get caught. Detective Sharon's office was called to investigate a series of mysterious break-ins happening in a fancy neighborhood. At each crime scene, the robber would leave the word "closer" sprayed in graffiti on a nearby wall. The first place to be robbed was Mrs. Moore's cafe. Then the criminal's next target was the town's library. After a week, the thief had left his mark in a fancy office building, a supermarket, and a restaurant. It took Detective Sharon a while, but she soon understood there was a pattern to the break-ins, and she was even able to predict what the next break-in would be. Can you figure out what it was? The thief was pretty clever for sure. The first letter of each of the locations the thief entered spelled out the word "closer." Since the last location to be robbed was a restaurant, the next place would start with C, restarting the cycle. Most likely, the neighborhood's community center. In the East Valley, there's a beautiful old kingdom known as Piatra. One of the town's most precious symbols is a valuable jewel that is always displayed during the city's festivities. This year, during the last celebration, something tragic happened. The town's jewel went missing. The king was devastated and mad that such an ancient artifact had been stolen. He soon called the kingdom's official investigator to help figure out who had possibly stolen the jewel. The culprit would have to be proclaimed responsible for their theft in front of the entire kingdom. There were many people at the festivity, but the investigator narrowed the suspects down to 4 people. Amelia said she saw something strange after the bard's presentation. she saw that Benjamin had picked up the jewel and handed it to Carol. But Ben said he didn't go anywhere near the jewel because he had been working on one of the stalls during the fair. Carol said she did go near the jewel, but she had only admired it from up close. And Daniel said that he could swear seeing Carol carrying the jewel, but he didn't see her take it. Based on the testimonies, the investigator had no trouble figuring out who the culprit was. Can you figure it out as well? It was Carol. Almost everyone thought she was involved in the crime. And plus, if you zoom in on her bag, you'll see something pointing. Sure looks like a jewel, doesn't it? The town's only DVD rental shop suffered a robbery last night. The store's owner called the police station to report the crime. The detective almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. After all, why would someone steal a DVD when there are so many streaming channels nowadays? The detective asked to see the footage from the security camera and identified 3 main suspects. Sarah was a middle-aged woman. She said she still owned a DVD player and preferred to watch movies the old way, so she regularly rented from the store. Alex was a recently retired movie director, and one of his favorite pastimes was going to the store. He said he hadn't noticed anything strange the day before, except for a random teenager that walked inside. David was in his teens, and he spent hours in the shop by himself. He said he was doing research for school, but swears he didn't take anything. Can you tell who did it? It was David. The security footage caught him in the R-rated section of the store. He must have stolen the DVD, thinking the store owner wouldn't sell it to him. There's an old museum that only displays ancient Egyptian artifacts. One day, Susan, an anthropology student, went to the museum in order to study some of the art on display. She went into a room full of things, such as necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. She photographed every detail she thought was important for her research, when something caught her eye. Take a look at the image. Can you figure out what it was? Look at those earrings. They look completely fake. Plus, they have a tiny price tag attached to them. The original earrings were definitely missing. Susan reported the crime to the museum's manager. The manager immediately informed the museum security and opened an investigation. Susan was on the initial suspect list, but after checking the museum's security footage, she was let go. Museum security identified 3 main suspects: one of the museum's guards, one of the students from the museum's archaeology school, and a visitor. The visitor said he had only popped in for a quick visit. He said he had seen the earrings, but they looked pretty original to him. The security guard said he hadn't seen anything strange going the last few days. Everything was as it should be. And the students said they had studied the earring in a class, but they never got the chance to see it before it was stolen. Soon enough, museum security found the culprit. Can you tell who it was? It was the visitor. When security went to investigate the suspects, they never mentioned that the original earring had been exchanged by fake ones. The fact that he knew there was an original version means that he was the one that swapped them. Yikes. Maya was working on her latest artwork, which was commissioned by a high-end gallery in town. Suddenly, all the lights in her studio went out, and since it was nighttime, she was left completely in the dark. She heard footsteps approaching the studio door, and the next thing she knew, she was feeling dizzy. Maya passed out and woke up in a tiny room that had nothing other than a metallic door. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. That's when she noticed that beside the door, There was a little device where a red sign appeared asking for a password. Below the device, there was a piece of paper with the following hint: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It took a while for her to understand what this meant. She read the note aloud several times before she finally figured out what the password was. Can you guess what password she typed into the device? Here's how it works. Maya had to type 1 time the number 2, 3 times the number 4, 5 times the number 6, and 7 times the number 8. Reading it aloud was the key to solve this problem. Whew!
Detective Brightbrain was sitting in his office when his phone rang. Richard Brooks, a jeweler, said he had just been robbed. Brightbrain arrived immediately at the boutique, and Mr. Brooks explained what happened.
I spent the entire morning showing diamond rings to a gentleman in a gray suit. He was extremely polite and knew a lot about diamonds. When I looked down to grab the store's most expensive ring, I felt someone hit me on the head. I fell forward, and when I woke up, the guy was gone.
Brightbrain didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he wrote a report saying Mr. Brooks wasn't robbed. He was actually faking the whole thing. Take a look at the scene. How did Brightbrain come to that conclusion? If Mr. Brooks fell forward, the weight of his body would have broken the glass counter in front of him. And look, there's not even a scratch. The next day, Brightbrain was driving to work when he got hit by a red Chevrolet. The guy got away pretty fast, but the detective managed to see the car's license plate began with 62. Back at the office, Brightbrain tracked down the possible owner of the vehicle, Mr. Neander. The detective arrived at Mr. Neander's house together with the police and immediately saw a red Chevrolet with a 62 license plate in the yard, but there weren't any signs of a collision. Brightbrain interrogated the subject, but Mr. Neander said,
I swear it wasn't me. I haven't left the house in 2 days, and I can't use my car because I lost the keys a week ago.
Brightbrain approached the vehicle and leaned on the hood of the car to peep inside. He immediately said, I know you're lying. How was Brightbrain so sure? The detective tried the simplest way to detect whether a car had been recently used. He checked the temperature of the motor. As the hood was still warm, this showed that Mr. Neander was lying. During the month of December, a gang of robbers was operating in Bentonville. They walked dressed up as Santa Claus and broke into houses through chimneys. They put valuable goods into their Santa bags and walked straight out the door. When the neighbors saw them, they thought they were the real Santa. Finally, the police caught the entire gang. However, one of them claimed he was the real Santa and shouldn't be convicted for crimes he didn't commit. Detective Brightbrain was called to handle the case because he had seen the real Santa once when he was still a little child. He recalled that Santa was medium height. He was wearing a coat with 6 buttons, and there was a pocket on the right. He also said that Santa's belt buckle was square. Take a look at the footage from the police station. Can you figure out who the real Santa is? It's the second one on the right. He fits all of Brightbrain's descriptions. It was raining when Brightbrain decided to drive down to the gym. Halfway there, a woman stopped his car asking for help. She said someone had just bumped into her car and drove away. When the detective took a look around, the only person next to the place of the incident was a man fixing his tire. The lady said that was the car that bumped into hers, but when Brightbrain went to talk to the man, he said it couldn't be true because he was busy fixing his car the whole time. Can you tell who's lying? It's the guy fixing his car. The rain just recently started, which means that if he was fixing his car the whole time, the ground underneath it would have been dry. But look, it's wet. This means he's just arrived there and was actually the one responsible for the incident. The next day, Bright Brain left his girlfriend's house directly to his office building. He was late for work, so he ignored several stop signs along the way. A police car passed by him exactly at the moment he was turning the wrong way onto a one-way street, but the officers didn't arrest him. Why? Because the detective was walking, not driving a car. Duh! Around 8 in the morning the next day, Detective Brightbrain was on his way to get coffee when he saw a robbery happen. A masked person ran off with a woman's wallet. The detective ran after the thief and saw him entering a coffee shop. When Brightbrain went inside, he searched for the thief but couldn't find them. The person had taken their mask off. He told the coffee shop owner that one of their clients was a thief, and the owner closed down the shop so that the detective could question the people there. The first person he interrogated was Allie. She said she had been in the coffee shop for the last 3 hours, working on her laptop. Brian said he had just come inside to get an espresso to go. Catherine said she had just started eating her breakfast and didn't see anything suspicious going on. Lastly, he interrogated John, the coffee shop owner. He said he opened the shop at 7 a.m. and hadn't left the place since then. Brightbrain knew immediately who had done it. Can you guess who it was? It was Allie. She said she'd been in the shop for the past 3 hours, but the shop had just opened at 7 o'clock. At his office, Brightbrain received a strange text message from his workmate, Harry. The text said, "Zucchini is in the fridge. Otherwise, I'm fine. Okay?" The weird text made the detective think there was a message hidden inside. After a few minutes, he found a hidden word in the message. Can you guess what it was? If you pay attention closely, the first letter of each line can be mixed together to form the word zoo. Quickly, Brightbrain grabbed his things and drove to the local zoo. He arrived at the zoo and immediately saw the entrance to a secret passageway. The passageway led him to a network of underground tunnels. At the entrance to the first tunnel, there were venomous rats. At the entrance to the second tunnel, there was an explosive about to go off in 5 minutes. And at the entrance to the last tunnel, there was toxic gas. Which tunnel should he choose? The second one, of course. He can pass through the tunnel after the explosive goes off. At the end of the tunnel, he found himself in a dark room. As soon as he entered, the door locked behind him and he was stuck. The room was empty except for another door at the other end of the room. That door was sealed with a letter combination lock. There was a slip of paper with the following hint written on it: P plus 3, N minus 1, B minus 1, N plus 4, S plus 1. What's the code word? It took Brightbrain a while to figure it out, but he was able to crack the code. The code word was SMART. The key to this riddle was hidden in the alphabet. P plus its 3 following letters is S. N minus 1 letter is M, and so on. Phew, the door opened and led him to another room where he finally met Harry. Brightbrain untied his workmate and told him he was going to get them out of that situation. But when he looked around, he noticed they were standing at the bottom of a very deep well. Looking up, they could see the clear blue sky, but it looked like there was no way out. The detective felt soil falling onto their heads, and he feared they were going to be buried in mud. Luckily, in an hour, both men made it out of the well alive. How did they manage to get out? They managed to tamp down the soil that was falling into the well. This way, they would get closer and closer to the surface until they managed to jump out and run away. That's it for Bright Brain's adventure today. That was a lot.
Hey Sherlock, I've got a job for you. Are you ready to polish your analytical skills? Great. Here you go.
Yeah.
Once Lily, a real estate agent, was showing a luxurious apartment to a wealthy family. The family liked everything about the apartment, but for one thing, the place had huge floor-to-ceiling windows, and they were worried someone could accidentally break the glass and fall out. Lily really wanted to sell that expensive apartment. That's why she decided to prove that the glass was unbreakable. She ran up to the window and hit it at full speed. The glass indeed didn't break, but Lily fell out of the window and was rushed to a hospital. How could it happen? The glass didn't break, it simply popped out of its frame. One day, Detective Morris decided to have a walk in the park. In the middle of his stroll, he got a call from his assistant. It turned out that a huge pile of plastic on the outskirts of the city had disappeared overnight. The detective rushed there, and guess what? The information was true. But the most bizarre thing? There were no tire tracks or any other marks around the place. But then, how could the thief transport so much plastic without using a vehicle? Suddenly, Detective Morris noticed some weird footmarks. Can you help the man understand who they belong to? Those are definitely not human footprints. They might belong to an animal or some other creature. The case is getting weirder by the minute. Detective Morris was wandering around the city for hours looking for clues. Soon his assistant informed him about the disappearance of yet another pile of plastic. At the crime scene, the detective found the same footmarks. The expert he had asked to examine the photos and samples replied that the footprints didn't match any other in her extensive database. She even suggested that they could belong to an alien. But why would aliens need our plastic? Morris decided to prevent the next crime. He went to the outskirts of the city again and spotted 2 piles of garbage. Look at them attentively. Which one might aliens want to steal? They will definitely go for the pile on the left. There's too much stuff made of iron in the right pile, but aliens are after plastic, so pile on the left it is. Detective Morris decided to catch the aliens red-handed. In an hour or so, the man noticed a spaceship landing not far from the piles of trash. An alien climbed out of the spaceship and transported the pile that contained plastic into the ship. Detective Morris was shocked, but there was no time for panicking. A small door was open in the side of the spaceship. He sneaked inside. He only had some time to look around when a siren started blaring. Oh no! Are they gonna take off? The man rushed back to the door, but it was already locked. Luckily, Morris noticed a math equation on the door. It looked as if it was made out of matchsticks. 5 + 7 = 2. But the answer was wrong. By trial and error, the detective understood he could only move one matchstick to make the equation correct. How can he do it? Detective Morris moved this matchstick and got 9 - 7 = 2. The door opened, and the man ran for his life. But the main question remained unanswered. Why did aliens need our plastic? Write your ideas in the comments below. Now look at these animals on the screen. A cat, a camel, a cheetah, a chicken, a crocodile, and a pig. Which animal doesn't belong here? The pig is the odd one out. It's the only animal whose name doesn't start with the letter C. Did you get it? Nice job. Look at these 6 glasses. The first 3 are filled with water, while the other 3 are empty. How can you arrange them so that they alternate in a full empty full pattern if you can only move one glass? Pick up the second glass and pour the water into the 5th one. Here you go. Now you have 7 guests at your birthday party, and your task is to figure out how to divide your very round birthday cake into 8 equal pieces by making only 3 cuts. First of all, you need to cut your cake vertically in the middle of the cake to divide it into 2 equal pieces. Repeat the same process, but this time, make a horizontal cut. Now you've got 4 slices. And the final 3rd cut should go laterally across the cake. Voila! You've got 8 equal slices. Look at these bottom lines and try to figure out which of them is the continuation of the top one. It's this line on the left, see? You've been kidnapped by an insane scientist who's going to test his new protective cream on you. After covering you with this lotion, which you absolutely don't trust, he offers you to choose one of the 3 containers he'll then throw you in. One of the containers is filled with radioactive waste. In the second container, there is an acid that can eat even through metal. And the third one is filled with lava from the largest volcano on Earth that erupted a year ago. Which container should you choose? Pick the container with lava. If the volcano erupted a year ago, the lava must be already solid. Look at these prisoners. Can you figure out who came from the future? It's the guy in the middle. Unlike the other 2 men who are dressed like people were in the past, he's wearing modern clothes and cool sneakers. A terrible virus broke free from a laboratory, and now all animals and plants on Earth are mutating at a horrifying speed.
Uh-oh.
You've been trying to find the solution, but instead got trapped in the laboratory where it had all started. There are 3 doors you can escape through, but behind the first one, there is a bunch of aggressive flesh-eating cacti. The second door hides hundreds of venomous bees, and the third door prevents an attack of fire-spitting dragon-like monsters. Which door can lead you to freedom? You can get out of there alive if you choose the first door. Even though the cacti eat flesh, they're still plants and can't move, so you can easily get around them. You're trapped in a room that's steadily getting filled with water coming from a tap in the wall. There are no windows in the room and the door is blocked. You have a mop and a big bucket. What can you do to survive? Yep, you don't have any options in this riddle, so think of your own way to get out of this situation. Your chances to stay alive are much higher than you might think. Just turn off the tap. Nathan came to visit his friend Zachary, who worked in a museum. Look what I've got. A priceless manuscript that was written more than 1,000 years ago. Zachary looked through the manuscript and realized his friend had been fooled. Does anything in this text strike you as strange? King Alfred V ruled the country from 1290 to 1320 before Common Era. If we talk about the dates before the Common Era, they should be in reverse order. The original text would read, King Alfred V ruled the country from 1320 to 1290 before Common Era. A villain has caught you, and now he lets you choose in which cage he will keep you. You can get out of the cage only through the lid in its ceiling. But on top of the first cage, there is a nest of venomous snakes. Boiling water is on top of the second cage. And on top of the third cage, there is a hungry lion. Which cage should you pick to be able to escape when the villain falls asleep? Choose the second cage because the water will eventually evaporate, and you'll get out of the cage without problems. You're locked in a small room without windows and just one door. To get out of there, you need to crack this riddle. 1, 2, 3 equals 5, 3, 2, 1 equals 9, 2, 1, 1 equals 4, 1, 1, 2 equals 3, 1, 3, 2 equals... How fast can you get out of the locked room? The answer lies in the addition of the second and third digits, and the multiplication of the sum by the first digit. Let's take the first equation. 1, 2, 3 equals 5, 2 plus 3 equals 5. 1 times 5 is 5, let's make sure. 3, 2, 1 equals 9. 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 times 3 is 9. Then the answer we need is again 5. 3 plus 2 equals 5, 1 times 5 is 5. Now, let's check if you can think outside the box. A few rebus puzzles will do the job. Yeah. Try to figure out this one. Way, progress. It means progress underway. How about this one? Noon. Good. It's good afternoon. Pay attention to the arrangement of the letters. C, L, E, A, N. Do you think you can figure it out? It means clean up. What word or phrase can you see here? Give, 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 give. It stands for forgive. Concentrate. I believe you can crack this puzzle. 1N, 3N, 5N, 7N. This rebus hides odds and ends. Try to figure out this one. Stay 4NCE. It's for instance. Great job! Mr. Carter, a rich man who collected antiques, asked Detective Morris to visit him. When the detective arrived, the collector said, "I've just got a precious statuette, but I need to go away on business for a week, and I'm afraid someone will break into my house." Of course, the statuette is insured, but still. Detective Morris had some other urgent things to do, but he promised to come back in the evening to figure out the solution. But when he arrived several hours later, Mr. Carter was in despair. I drove my sister to the doctor and was away for an hour or so. But when I came back, the statuette was gone. Detective Morris didn't believe the collector. Why? When he left the house in the afternoon, he noticed an apple lying in front of the left part of the gate. It's still there. But for a car to drive through, both parts of the gate have to be open. This means that Mr. Carter lied about leaving his home by car. Several gold bullion bars were stolen from a bank. The police had a few suspects. But when they arrived at the main suspect's house, they realized they had forgotten to bring a warrant. The man told them he wasn't going to allow them to search his house. "Come back with the warrant and we'll talk." An hour later, the police officers came back with the needed documents. They thoroughly searched the house and the garden, but didn't find the gold. Suddenly, one of the officers exclaimed, "I know where he hid the gold. Have you figured it out too?" The gold is in the swimming pool. When the police visited the man for the first time, the level of water in it was much lower. A very famous painting disappeared from a museum. Later, the police managed to find it. But there was a problem. They found not one, but 3 paintings. Only one of them is original. The others are just copies. Can you help the police figure out which the original painting is? It's the one with the brown frame. Take a look. All frames in the museum are made in the same style. You've got accepted to the best school of witchcraft and wizardry. One of the classes you have to attend is about transforming into animals. There are 3 professors who teach this class. Each of them specializes in transforming into a certain animal. Look at your professors and try to figure out what kind of animal each of them turns into. Have you noticed that the first professor has a forked tongue? He must transform into a snake. The second professor has a lion's tail. It must be the animal she transforms into. And the third professor has bear claws. He must turn into a grizzly bear.